And gentlemen, to the Beyond the Summit SEA Southeast Asian Series. This is going to be game 2 between Ideal and Team 123. I believe that Team 123 just ended up laying down the biggest smackdown that I've ever seen in the history of Dota, at least for my own personal history. I'm Lyrical Dota, joined today by @DannyLeeCasts, as well as Corrupt Dropbear on the stats. Danny, have we recovered from that game 1?
I think we need a bit more time. just a little bit more. Maybe enough time for me to just run out to the shop downstairs to maybe buy some tea. I think I need to lie down as well. But that game was very fast-paced for Team 123, and it all came down to 123 just steamrolling over Ideal because they saw Ideal's draft. They said, hey, we know you want to make space for an anti-mage. Let's steamroll all over you while you are still vulnerable. And they did just that, and Ideal had no chance to come back. It was just a complete and utter outdraft and steamroll.
Yeah, I mean, you can outdraft somebody, but if you're also able to out-execute them on top of that, there's just no chance for you. And it is worth noting that, a lot of the betting sites did have this very much into the favor of 123. Obviously, a pretty well-known team. They've been around for a decent amount of time. Ideal have as well to some extent, but I feel like they've never really been able to make that push into the upper echelon of SEA Dota. Regardless, we're going to be taking a look at this. I mean, the other thing about it that was so frustrating is, not only was it one of the biggest stomps that I've ever seen, but it was also sort of thrown in there with just ridiculous amounts of delay and pauses. And that's something that's worth noting, is maybe there are some connectivity issues that are causing problems. They did say that it was 300 ping, which is going to mean that you're not necessarily able to execute at the highest level ever. So maybe this isn't all on Ideal in their own individual play, but a bit on the problems getting on into the game. So we'll throw them the benefit of the doubt. We are going to see a Darkseer picked up, as well as a Disruptor Gyrocopter. I think that the Darkseer pick first makes a lot of sense. You ended up really having this hero cause a lot of problems for you in lane. He was going up against a solo Night Stalker on the side of Team 123. And he was able to outlast hit him like 50 to, I don't know, something like 20 or something like that by about the 8-minute mark, and it just ended up being a complete and total stomp.
Yeah, definitely. Now, this is something that I like seeing coming out of Ideal. Strong combo right off the bat. Darkseer, Spirit Breaker. So this offlane is going to be hell for 123 because you're dealing with not just one tanky hero that's going to be stupidly annoying. You're dealing with 2 tanky heroes that are going to be stupidly annoying. And unfortunately for them, they've already picked up one support for 123, and it's going to be the Disruptor. And one thing to note with Disruptor is he is actually relatively weak during the laning phase up until he reaches that maybe level 3 or 4 with those extra points in the glimpse, as well as at least 1 point into the kinetic field. This hero has no escape, is incredibly squishy, and very vulnerable to getting picked off by offlanes. So I love this dual lane off lane that we could potentially be seeing coming out from Ideal. Or if it's not going to be the dual lane off lane, at least a Darkseer that will stay in lane quite well, and the Spirit Breaker hopefully roaming around and securing those kills.
Certainly, and I will mention that you talked about there that weakness of Disruptor in lane. I think that it's super evident when you run these dual aggressive off lanes, because even if you are able to get those points in glimpse and kinetic field, what do you do after you end up glimpsing one here? If you glimpse the Darkseer, that means the Spirit Breaker's on top of you. If you glimpse the Spirit Breaker, that means the Darkseer's on top of you. And either way, you're getting hit by ion shells. So it does cause a big problem in these drafts, the fact that you don't have the ability to have the sort of secondary disable after the fact. I mean, even if you end up maxing on out glimpse, it's still going to be an 18-second cooldown, even at the max level. So you're not going to be able to get 2 of them to be away from you. Now, the thing that I'm wondering here is Disruptor and Gyrocopter are certainly capable of running of being able to be aggressive early, but I'm wondering if we might end up seeing 123 sort of switch gears a little bit and go a little bit more towards the late game side of things, because they really identified a weakness in Ideal's draft and then capitalized on it. And I felt like their draft was pretty well designed at the very beginning, that they were going to be able to deal with it no matter what happened.
Yeah. So now we have the third pickup here for 123. It's going to be the Earthshaker. And Earthshaker up against the Darkseer Spirit Breaker combo. Do you feel like this here is a good buffer up against this duo because you can sort of separate the terrain with the fissure?
Honestly, no. I really don't like the Earthshaker if they're going to put him in that support role. I hope that they put him in the off lane, because he sort of causes, it's the same problem as the disruptor at the early levels, that you need to be able to, once you drop down a fissure, that blocks somebody off from being able to get away, but you can just charge on in again. You're not going to be able to fully block them away, and then you just kind of have a fissure that's laid out there, and then a hero that can right click a spirit breaker. To me, it feels like, at least at this point, if this Earthshaker isn't in the off lane, then they can really get run over just by this dual aggressive off lane that I'm imagining Ideal is going to go. And that being said, if it's a Spirit Breaker in the safe lane, not run with the Darkseer, then I don't know what's going on in this game. But they end up picking a Winter Wyvern as their third pick here as well.
Oh God, this Invoker pick fourth. I love seeing myself some Invoker, and 123 is going to be fulfilling my need for Invoker today. Now, my question is here with you. Is it going to be Crosswex, or is it going to be the Exalt Invoker that we see? I love seeing Exalt a little bit more because you have sniping potential with the Sunstrikes, but in this game, what would ideally be the better build? Is it going to be the Disruptive Crosswex, or do you feel like they need a little bit of damage from that mid laner?
I feel like we almost always see Crosswex, and I think that probably is going to be the one that you end up going for. It's great to be able to take away the mana from these heroes. But I really like the idea of going Exort here, because the other thing, particularly if he ends up going for the Alacrity build, the other thing that you can throw onto this is if you end up getting the Gyrocopter with maxed out Exort Alacrity on top of him, that ability scales so well. You end up, I believe, with 20 or 30 damage at the base level, and then you add 10 extra damage onto it for each instance of Exort that you have leveled up. And that is just so strong. If you're able to give a Gyrocopter an extra 100 damage, or probably more around the lines of like 80 extra damage, and then the bonus attack speed on top of his flat cannon, it gives you an incredibly ability to farm more so than you would otherwise. You can take out ancient stacks earlier. All in all, it just means that you're that much more capable of fighting early. Now, that being said, again, the Crosswex is very powerful in terms of what it's able to do, and the problems with the Exort Invoker is that if you don't find kills with it, you're sort of left in this situation where you're kind of a slow hero, you don't really have that high of movement speed, you don't have the greatest initiation capabilities. Time will tell, but I can see the pluses and minuses of both sides. I'm imagining it's going to be Crosswex, though.
Okay, so Crosswex coming out from Lyrical Dota, ladies and gentlemen. We'll see if he's actually correct with this. Now, it's going to be an Invoker versus Wind Ranger matchup. Wind Ranger being one of the most powerful mid lane heroes in the current meta, and up against an Invoker, Wind Ranger should have the upper hand in this matchup, unless she gets outplayed, as we sometimes can see Invokers do some really tricky plays and really working in their favor. I think for 1-2-3, to shut down the Wind Ranger, would you expect the Earthshaker to go in for a rotation fissure?
Yeah, that could definitely be a solid way to make it happen. And again, it depends upon what the Invoker's build is. If he goes Crosswex, it's going to be a little... I guess the Cold Snap there as well. Like, you're still going to rely upon the right clicks, and Wind Run is always going to be pretty relevant there. If they go Exort, I can see that being an opportunity for a kill where you lay down the Sunstrike on top of her. But I don't know if he necessarily has to win the lane incredibly hard. That's the other thing that you do sometimes actually see when we've been looking at the new version of Invoker. And I'll say that I do think it's going to be Crosswex, but I would love to see the Exort build. Occasionally you end up picking up that early point in Wex, and then you use the meatballs at the early levels to push out the creep wave on top of using Alacrity last hit, which just looks really silly, but it's awesome.
Well, if it looks awesome, then that's fine by me. So our final two bands here, it's going to be a Tidehunter and a Juggernaut. So Gigabyte Ideal Gigabyte, sorry, I'm reading it backwards. They need a safe lane carry, and I feel like Juggernaut would have been a very nice hero pickup. As you look at 1-2-3, they're very reliant on their spells, and Jug is one of the only heroes in the game that can kind of bypass the glimpse without some stupid interactions. Like, for example, Puck can't even phase shift out of glimpse for some silly reason. So Jug would have been a very good hero to go up against Disruptor. But Husker, final pickup for Ideal. Last pick for SatuDuaTiga, though, is Lina. And is this a core Lina? Safe lane? Wait, so how do the lanes work? Is it going to be an aggressive trialing here from 1-2-3?
I'm not sure. I was thinking the same thing, and I was wondering if maybe we were going to end up seeing an offlane Invoker, which you do occasionally see. But I think that what it's going to be is the Earthshaker in the offlane, and then a support Lina, and then you're going to sort of have the setup for the Light Strike Array with the Glimpse back. The thing I'm wondering now is if they might end up switching this around and getting more farm to the Lina instead, so that way you're able to burst on down the Huskar.
That's
Uh,
what I'm thinking. Yeah.
I'm wondering, but they picked the Lina before the Huskar, so they've already committed. I'm not sure. Um, there's always that option, but they would have to probably switch around their heroes.
Yeah, I really think they should prioritize the Lena's farm a little bit more, as you said, to have a way to deal with the Huskar, not completely, but at least have a way to sort of burst him down. Because you look at 123's draft right now, they don't have the best physical right click. So dealing with the Huskar is going to be troublesome, and if they don't have anyone that's going to be building into too much physical damage, it's quite difficult because even though Gyrocopter is supposed to be that physical right clicker for 123, he has stupidly short range, and his physical right click during the early game, pre 20 to 30 minutes worth of farm, is quite abysmal. So this Huskar for Ideal this game should be able to get a lot done before the Gyrocopter is quite relevant in the right click department.
Yeah. I guess the other thing here is we talked a bit more about Quas Exort. That's probably a cooler build to go with the Huskar in tow now also, because you have the pure damage that comes out from Sunstrike and obviously the better right click. So it's just a tough situation all around. I think a last pick Huskar is always just going to mess with what you might want to have happen. And I don't know. We'll see how they respond to it. I think that's really going to be the storyline, is how much is this Huskar going to impact the game as we get a nice little lovely pause here. And we'll see in a little bit where it's going to end up going. It does look like it's going to be the support Lina, though, considering she ended up picking up a smoke and also has several of those clarities.
Oh,
Unfortunately.
no.
Well,
So
it's okay.
unfortunately, it's a new game, right? So they get a fresh 10-minute pause.
Yeah, that's good. It's good stuff. Gyrocopter does have... I think that also, we talked a bit in the earlier stages about the Darkseer and the Spiritbreaker and how those work together in a dual offlane. I like the Lina being thrown into this defensive tri-lane that they're going to have, because what you're going to see is that you can have a more effective presence in there. You've got two nukes that are going to be relatively spammable. She has two clarities that are going to mean that she can toss those out consistently. And I think that right now you've got the capability of really getting a couple of kills. Gyrocopter, a very early aggressive hero, he can throw out a lot of damage with that rocket barrage. At level 1, you end up having 3 seconds of it, as well as 7 damage per rocket, 10 rockets per second. So if you do the math together, that's a 210 damage nuke at level 1. This continues to scale up incredibly well, and you can just level that against these heroes. And part of the biggest thing that keeps Spiritbreaker and Darkseer very tanky is their high armor, which honestly the magic damage doesn't really care all that much about. So effective HP going to be slightly lower for these heroes, and we're actually seeing the Spiritbreaker that's moving over. Is he just going to sit here for a little while and secure off the rune and then move down to the bottom lane? Or do you think this might end up just being a Spiritbreaker pulling in the top lane?
He honestly could pull for a little bit and then try to go for the rune because he's level 1 at this point. Maybe try and give the Darkseer those extra levels before he rotates down. Because remember, if you're going to dual lane a Spiritbreaker this early with a Darkseer is going to be hitting level 2 and 3 significantly slower. So I think at this point, wait for Jibby to get maybe 2 points into the Ion Chill at least before he tries to go for a kill. Because 30 damage at level 1, it's nice and all, but you prefer to get that 50 damage per second.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking right now at the little close-up of these heroes, and it looks like Huskar just punched Windranger in the face, which is lovely, saying, I'm going to be the one that gets the farm here. He is just such a creepy dude. If you looked at Huskar, he's got this blue skin, he's got like a horn sticking out of his head. He actually looks like Troll Warlord right now, but regardless, these are the type of things that we get to talk about when we're waiting for people to load on into the game. Yeah, it's Invoker this patch is going to cost Wex in 50% of his games. He picks up at least 1 in Exort. Yeah, so I think that really what we've been seeing more often with the Invoker builds is that you do need to be able to get that early point Exort, just because the buff to Alacrity made it so good in terms of what it gives you in the laning stage. It gives you that laning dominance, and then you're going to be able to make sure that you're survivable and you can actually last hit and you're somewhat relevant in the early stages, which was really his problem in previous patches, is that he just didn't have the capabilities of being any type of danger to anybody in the lane.
and not just a danger, but he's also quite vulnerable in lane 2. He doesn't have the best escape mechanism up until he gets Ghost Walk, or even to some degree, even maybe the mini Tornado that you can get super early. So Yamate on the Invoker, he should do okay, but he still has to be pretty aware that there might be a rotation by the Spirit Breaker, and if it catches him off guard, I don't know if Yamate is going to be able to survive. He's got a Null Talisman for some stats, so he's got a decent HP pool to work with, just not really the armor. And I think it's really up to the mid matchup on whether it's going to be the Invoker show or if it's going to be the Wind Ranger show, or unless it could potentially be, I guess Huskar's not going to go mid because it's not played by Toy. Toy played a Viper last game.
Yeah. And considering the builds, this makes a lot of sense in my eyes, at least. You're going to be able to get that early bottle on the Wind Ranger, everything all hunky-dory. And looks like, at least at this point, TNT is just going to be moving on up there towards that top lane, trading off runes, no real surprises at all, and we finally get to stop theory crafting for a little bit and get to watch some Dota. You know what, I think I'm going to play some Invoker later on today. This sounds like fun. This hero is just so much fun to play, and he always provides interesting storylines. He provides an interesting thing to watch, and moving around your fingers super fast on the keyboard, you just feel like a boss, but we're going to go on to the rest of this game.
Not just that, though. You got to remember the skill cap on this hero. You can do so much with an Invoker if you are aware of the full capabilities of the hero. So we've seen pro players make use of Invokers, and we've seen flashy plays. And for me, I'm actually hoping we get to see some of these plays with Yamate, because for Yamate, this is actually one of his signature heroes. He plays a phenomenal Invoker. So I think for us, just also keep an eye on him to see if he gets any of those, not just awesome plays, but also if he's able to maybe make space for 1, 2, 3. Because again, if you're comfortable with the hero, or if you just get 3-man ganked right off the bat, don't think you're going to be too happy. Slowed up, Shackle's there for the mini disable. Is it enough to kill off Yamate? It is. And I think Ideal, they're aware of how powerful this player is on the Invoker. So 3-man gank on an Invoker a minute in.
Yeah, that's a little bit too bad. So a little bit of a caster's curse going on there as well. You ended up talking about how amazing he was. He missed a CS under tower, and then he ended up getting 3-man ganked. But don't worry, it's all good. The game is going to continue on here. He's going to be survivable because he's going for that Quas build, or he has a point in Quas already at the start. Also, the Cold Snap is always going to be relevant. He's going to need to be able to turn around those ganks, and it can be very, very scary if you get caught out under tower with Cold Snap going, even if it's only with 1 point in the Quas, and does end up going for that second point in Wex. I'm imagining that we're going to see a second one here in Quas, and then after he gets maybe several more, he goes for an early point in Exort to be able to unlock that Alacrity. He needs to be able to last hit effectively, and it could be tough if he doesn't end up getting that spell.
It also depends on Yamate if he's going to be comfortable going up against Toy, because sometimes you get those weird matchups where give an Invoker a couple of levels and then all of a sudden he's dominating the lane. Because look at the harassment thrown out onto the Wind Ranger already, down to half, having to bottle up, and also going to have the rune stolen too. That doesn't help Toy's situation. He's got 1 bottle charge left, so he's going to have to try and live off of that. And for Yamate, he's got free regen technically. Just because he's got the 3 Quas balls, he's going to be able to heal up with a half a tango rate.
Yeah. It's really strong, and he also does have one of those tangos also in his person. A nice little magic stick picked on up. We do have the Spirit Breaker roaming around the backside, and also worth noting that Earthshaker is here. So if Wind Ranger ends up getting a little bit too fresh and fancy free, they're going to be able to land on that fissure. 3 heroes still committed to this mid lane, while we do have the Earthshaker roaming around the area, trying to make sure that this Invoker doesn't end up getting ganked. But this is sort of leaving open a bit of a window for the top lane. We're getting complete and total free farm up here, although we have seen the Darkseer roam on in with the Huskar. So all across the board, the lanes are looking very strange. We ended up seeing Gigabyte have to move on over here, considering he was getting pressured out of lane. We talked about the power that you could have seen out of the Darkseer Spiritbreaker, and it just didn't end up happening. They ended up just leaving him alone there, and against a Disruptor, that's not a good lane for Darkseer. I'm not sure about Ideal's choice of laning here.
Yeah, I'm really surprised with this as well, but it seems like for the most part, they want to secure the farm onto Jibby. So they want to get that really quick mechanism, and if he sits in lane, there's a chance he dies, there's a chance that the aggression fails. So I think at this point they're picking the safer route and saying we're going to mostly give up that bottom lane, or at least give it to the Spirit Breaker to soak up, and have the Darkseer just sit in the jungle, farm away, and get that mechanism at a decent timing. Still has to be careful because 1-2-3 might decide to go for a roam in the enemy jungle. Because if you don't see a Darkseer in lane, you're going to know he's in the jungle.
Yeah, definitely. It's worth noting that at this stage in the game, they were halfway to a 5,000 net worth lead on the side of on the side of 1-2-3. Excuse me about that. I almost said 1437. That is the player from Cloud9. No, excuse me. Sorry, player for DC. Oh, man, everything is just going good this cast. But regardless, I think that, they've been doing a much better side on the team of Ideal. You've got a net worth lead that's shooting up towards the right around 1,500 mark, and it's mainly off the back of the CS that we've been seeing up here in the top lane. Huskar's been able to get pretty much everything that he wants, and as has the Gyrocopter, but also in the mid lane, Invoker really hasn't been able to get those last hits. About, 11 last hits behind the Wind Ranger.
So it looks like for the most part, Yamate's not doing amazingly well up against the Wind Ranger, but I think the best thing is that he's not being focused down anymore. He's not absolutely dying, although now that I say that, he's just going to get charged. So charge coming through, and Jimmy's not going to even bother coming in. He will put a Ion Shell onto the Spirit Breaker though, so if Invoker comes a little bit too close, beautiful Shackle Initiation and a double damage room with the Focus Fire, but it's not going to be enough. Tornado is going to be enough to keep them away. Even an LSA just to make sure they don't get anywhere near this Invoker. And for 1-2-3, they can see this incoming from Ideal. They know they've been focusing him down, and I like how they're keeping a support in the mid lane consistently to sort of babysit Yamate if he isn't able to sort of dislodge this gank himself. So the movements from 1-2-3 has been good, keeping the Invoker alive, whereas for Ideal, their gank's not quite successful, but I think at this point, just keep up the pressure and keep 1-2-3 on their toes, even if they're not getting those kills.
Yeah, certainly. A little bit of psychology plays into it also. You sort of get an idea of, all right, are we going to end up being able to find a gank here? All right, no, the Spirit Breaker isn't going to be able to gank mid. Now we leave him alone for a little while, and then you end up being able to rotate out the Lina, and she doesn't have to stick around the lane as much. So it's kind of going both ways, and currently the Invoker is catching up pretty effectively. He's at 2100 CS, but really the big thing is that he's still getting his levels. He's going to start to trade hits here a little bit with the Wind Ranger, but I don't expect to see a kill in this lane. It's really, I think if there are going to be any kills, it's going to come off of rotations and heroes maybe diving a bit too deep. So those are going to be the things that we need to keep an eye out for, and we'll see how it ends up going here.
Okay, so about 6 minutes into the game, and CS is looking okay across the board. Are we looking at any timing windows for these teams? Is there any moment in time that's going to be incredibly strong for each side? I'm going to hold my thought first, though, as we have a rotation coming into the mid lane, and they want to focus down Toy, who's actually backed up completely. Fish is going to be the LSA to follow up, and Yamate, is he going to be the with the follow-up? Unfortunately, no extra disables, and Toy gets out. The Shackle, though, onto the lean-up. Shot to hell. Beautiful stuff coming out from Toy, and now Yamate, he wants revenge. Going to go for the Deafening Blast. The heals there from the Wyvern. Cooldown coming in as the Gyrocopters TP'd, and they get that kill and the Wyvern. 1-2-3, heavy commitment to get those kills in the mid lane, but now the charge onto the Gyro. Now they're jumping onto Yamate with the bash. Is it going to be enough? The Ion Shell going to try and melt through him. They need to man fight him or get away, and it looks like they're going to be able to finish him off with the Gyrocopter. Oh my goodness, the Rocket Barrage, too strong for Ideal.
Absolutely, and being able to have those the 2 points in flat cannon also meant that he was hitting everybody in those engagements. We're looking at a 1,300 gold swing into their favor off the back of what was a good laning stage for Ideal, and they weren't just quite able to make it happen. So I really feel like the early points there, the fighting build that 1-2-3 have been able to build up, even though they ended up getting the kill on Alina, it felt a little bit fluky, and I mean, it was a great shackle there by Toy, no questions asked. But it's so hard to be able to sort of deal with this and not being able to respond quickly enough. We do have Disruptor getting charged over here. He's going to be able to glimpse on back the Spirit Breaker, so no charges or bashes coming in, and nobody's just going to end up TPing out, realizing that there are no stuns on this side, and he's going to be able to get out of there. Well played, and not enough damage to bring him down.
A little unfortunate to not secure that freebie, but I think for Ideal, they send the hero back. It's going to free up the lane a little bit, and it looks like they're not going to capitalize on the lane. Instead, they're looking for someone, and Gyro is going to be the cooldown actually onto the creep. Now, are they going to try and jump onto him? It seems cooldown is there. sorry, cooldown was already used, and now three-man jump straight onto the gyro, who's a little bit slow, although it looks like he might outspeed them, and the Disruptor's there to save his teammates. So Ideal, again with the lack of damage, is not able to secure their target, and Disruptor has 1 second left on the Glimpse, runs out of vision, unfortunately. They could try and get someone else instead, the Wind Ranger looking like an ideal target, but nobody's still on the tree line. And Wyvern's going to fly on through. Oh, beautiful fissure to block out Toy's exit point. Now nobody's going to be there with the field. No mana for the Glimpse, but it doesn't matter. They get a Wyvern, and now they're going to chase as the Wind Ranger gets picked off by the Gyrocopter, it seems, and Jibby gets slain as well. TP out. Glimpse is there, and
Whoa.
Not actually... Whoa.
What? That is definitely a glitch.
I think the glimpse happened too late. I have no idea what's happened. I need to watch this replay.
Okay, that was a 1600 gold swing, but what ended up happening was he was mid-TP as the glimpse was coming through, and I think the exact moment where he was going to reappear, he also simultaneously was going to complete his TP, and so because of that, I guess the priority of how those spells interact and how the spell interacts with TPs is if you end up getting it on either side of that mark, you're not going to be able to TP away, and you're just going to get brought over to the side, but instead, it didn't break it. What a weird interaction.
That feels broken. I don't think that's supposed to be how it works, but
No, it's definitely not.
I think it's just hashtag reborn things. Let's keep it at that. It's just a reborn thing. It's a new interaction. It is intentional, according to Valve.
I'm sure that the Ice Frogs spam is going to be going on, and maybe a couple of whatever. Anyways, we're going to be moving on here. Helm of the Dominator is probably going to be the item that we end up seeing in just a few minutes here on the Gyrocopter. It's worth noting that with that set of kills, even though they didn't end up getting off the Spirit Breaker, still moving ahead 1, 2, 3 in a dominant position just because of pretty solid team fights that we end up happening. The TP always occur first, even if stunned on the same take. Very interesting. Well, regardless, we're moving on. Disruptor, level 5, maxing on out that Glimpse. He's not going for... Occasionally you end up seeing for the Disruptors, they max on out Thunderstrike if it's a very static lane. But, oh, the Shackle from long range. That's going to be able to connect. Maybe the Fissure is going to be able to save the Gyrocopter's life, though, is going to glimpse on back the person who was TPing in. So no longer are we going to be able to have a Huskar in the middle of this, but Gyrocopter just eliminates that Dark Seer. There's going to be the EMP coming out. Doesn't actually hit onto anybody, but the Wind Ranger still ends up falling. And just like that, another 2 quick kills. Everybody is upset. And actually, Spirit Breaker is stuck up on the high ground here, but he's going to be able to charge away. And they're going to take a tier 1.
Yeah, most of the damage output was actually from the Echo Slam that happened in the middle of the fight. It was next to a creep wave as well, so that was also where you saw that massive influx of damage coming from 1, 2, 3. But they killed those heroes so quickly. And now, Ideal has got to be looking at 1, 2, 3's draft thinking... There is so much damage output that we need to play a little bit more carefully, and they have to sort of pick their fights, because the way Ideal has been playing it so far is that they mostly pick the squishier targets. But that's fine if you want to pick a squishier target. You just have to hope that there's no towers nearby for TPs, that there's no reinforcements nearby. And Disruptor hasn't really been by himself. For most of this game, he's always had someone nearby, and they've always been able to reinforce nobody, as well as the Earthshaker, who suffers a similar situation. So 1, 2, 3 is reinforcing very well, whereas Ideal, I think they're picking fights that they shouldn't be taking. They go in and they 100% commit. I think there's some times where they can start the fight, but then they can sort of back out before 1, 2, 3 fully commits.
Yeah. Well, and I think that, keeping these supports alive, incredibly important, and the fact that they've been able to get the levels that they've needed. Right now, you end up seeing the Earthshaker currently level 7, you end up seeing the Disruptor does have 6 on top of the Lina having 6. There's a timing window here before we end up seeing the Nether Strike and the Winter Wyvern ulti coming out, where you're going to be able to find a good amount of initiation. What might be in a little bit of trouble now, but I think that the rest of his team being here, a huge bait, and now we're going to end up seeing that why you lose going down. Cold snaps abound. It does look like with the Alacrity up, they're going to be in a little bit of trouble. Glimpse on back onto the Wind Ranger in the middle of everything, doesn't get caught in the kinetic field though. There's the Huskar jump on top of nobody. The Static Storm has been committed for this one now, and he looks to be dropping pretty low. Do they have enough physical damage to be able to burst him down? I believe that they do. One last right click. Gyrocopter ends up getting that kill. They are going to have another fissure in a second or two. Oh, the Dragon Slave just at the end is going to be enough to finish off that Wind Ranger. Magical damage abound. It's absolutely gorgeous.
Beautiful clip coming out from the Lina. That was very nice play coming out from him. And Ideal, again, they're losing not just core heroes, but they're just losing heroes everywhere. And for me, I really don't know why the Huskar would jump into a whole pack of Radiant heroes wanting to kill a Disruptor. Because look at the Huskar's farm. His farm is actually pretty good compared to the rest of his team. He's third in net worth if you take a look at him and make the comparison. So he needs to continue on moving upwards. He doesn't need to sort of demote himself to a position 2 or 3 for a simple Disruptor kill. So
Yeah.
interesting decision for the Huskar to do such a play. Maybe he thought he was going to survive. Maybe he thought Armlet Toggle was going to be too strong. Who knows what TNT was thinking.
Well, and I guess the other thing was that Ice or Cold Snap had already been committed. Maybe he thought that, you know, they weren't going to be sticking around long enough, and maybe the rest of his team. It's so hard to know in these types of moments what it is that's actually going to be blaming, because I always think about this. All right, maybe the player ends up getting a call from the captain, jump on in there, you need to be able to find a kill, and it ends up being a bad play, and then we just end up seeing TNT look like a dummy when it's really somebody else that ended up making the call. But regardless, it was not the right call that ended up getting made, whoever made it, and now he looks to be falling again. Does get Cold Embrace, keeping him alive a little bit longer, and that's a pretty nice little point. They end up TPing on out of there. Nice vacuum back, keeping Lina a little bit in trouble. She's going to be able to walk away after the fissure's been committed. Nobody is going to die. Armlet Toggle is going to keep Huskar alive there after the Earthshaker takes out the Darkseer, and he's just going to walk away. Inner Vitality, but again, 12-4 right now. You trade a Darkseer, your offlane, for the Disruptor. 4,000 net worth lead into the favor of 1-2-3, as well as about 3,000 experience, and it doesn't look like they're going to be slowing down any given point in time.
I don't think so either, and this is going to be a scary point for Ideal, because I think the best way for them to really compete with 1-2-3 is if they want a man fight, they need more items and levels on these heroes. They need this first item done on the Wind Ranger, which, does it look like a 4-staff to you?
Yeah, that's kind of what it seems like. It could also maybe be a Yule's. I think it's a 4-staff.
Yeah.
Just to be able to get people out of the range of that cooldown, maybe you also need to be a little bit worried. Actually, I wouldn't mind a Yule's, considering that they saw that the Invoker was going for an Orchid. That might be another reason that they end up going it, just to give that extra survivability to her. But regardless, it's not the item that you end up wanting to pick up on her, unless that this is like the first pickup as a part of her Aghanim Scepter, which is also a possibility. But normally you end up seeing a point booster out of that. Maybe she was, you know, getting killed and needed to panic buy it or something. But we'll see. Earthshaker picks up his Blink Dagger at 16 minutes. He is a happy Earthshaker.
And this is considering he hasn't been in his lane at all during the early game. This has all just been contribution and kills for the Earthshaker. It just goes to show how well 1-2-3 is doing in the game so far. They're getting the kills that they want. They're also getting... They got one... I guess the towers for the tower situation for 1-2-3 is not amazing. They don't have the best tower push, so I think this is why they're playing super aggressive. They're hoping that they get kills and that they have enough heroes to really supplement a very strong objective push afterwards. And looks like, for the most part, Yamate is going to try and set up for the rest of his team, sitting in the Ghost Walk with Cold Snap at the ready. And the rest of 1-2-3 are going to sit behind him for now, as Yamate is going to look around. There is a Sentry Ward, though, so they do know the Invoker is here. Winter's Curse straight away. Call down, jumps straight onto our Gyrocopter, but TNT, he's stuck in a shackle shot, it seems. And Yamate is going to have to try and get out of this as quickly as he can. Actually, it wasn't a shackle onto Huskar, but he was disabled in the meantime. 2 are dead on either side. Shackle lands onto that tree. What, in the meantime, does literally die to a what situation? Ada's trying to get away from the Lina, does get picked off, TP is out, and there is no shackle available to actually catch the Lina. And the only other hero to survive was the Disruptor on the side of 1-2-3. What caught the Huskar? There was a disable that I didn't see. There was a cluster flub down there.
I think that it was a light strike array. It could have also just been the Earthshaker in the middle of everything. But yeah, he was able to get caught out there. There was a 2-man shackle onto the Invoker, as well as, I believe, the Gyrocopter, if I'm not mistaken. So a couple of different things that ended up catching him out there. And it was kind of a bit of an awkward team fight. It went about as good as you could have hoped there for Ideal. If you end up being able to get the initiation started off with a Winter Wyvern getting Orchided at the start of that fight, that goes just awfully. And they also have the capabilities of being able to throw the Disruptor ulti on top of them. Looking for the possibility to jump on in here. Huskar's in the middle of them. They do end up dropping the Orchid down on top of him. Cold Snap as well as the Echo Slam. He is going to be dropping low, and that's going to be a kill. Looking like they might be going for a little bit more. Glimpsing on back the Wind Ranger. No TP is going to be happening this time, and she is going to go down. One last hit there from the Gyrocopter, and another 2 quick kills on the cores. The top of the net worth for the Dire. They're really great hope, and it's looking not good for Ideal.
Huskar just wanted the tower. That was the only reason why he hung around. He just wanted the tower, but 123 didn't give him anything. Just relentless and ripped him to bits and denies the tower in his, not really in his face, but they denied it afterwards.
Over his grave.
Over his, well, his grave was a little further away, but I think we'll just they'll send him his well wishes, that's fine. But in the meantime, though, the rest of Ideal, they weren't anywhere near there. They were actually moving towards the south, it seems. They're trying to find somebody, and the only hero here is actually the Lina that's just TP'd in. And nobody's actually come in either as well. So 2 very squishy heroes down in the bottom lane, and you can see Ideal are waiting this out, looking for a hero to pop their head through. And I think it might just be this poor Disruptor, although Yamate's here as well. So this could be a good or bad situation for either team. Quick D-ward here by nobody. So the Sentry Ward's going to go straight down. And they know that the Invoker is here. Sentry straight away pop down. There's the charge. They want to kill off Yamate. Now the Strike as well. Wall pop down. Can they finish him off in time? They do manage to finish him, but with heavy commitment. Every single ultimate out of their pockets to kill off an Invoker.
Yeah, and it looks like they're going to be able to glimpse away the Wind Ranger. That would have killed the Disruptor. They don't have the glimpse now for the Spirit Breaker. They end up canceling it as the kinetic field was dropped. And it was going to be that Aghanim Scepter that gets picked up by the Wind Ranger. So I guess that it was just a panic buy, or trying to get a little bit more damage on top of her because she is that intelligence hero. And now going to be able to move on in here and take on out Roshan. So maybe they have an opportunity. I mean, it's worth noting that in terms of the net worth lead, it's only about 1,500. Experience-wise, it's a 3,000 experience lead for 123. But they realize that this is going on. And I think that they wanted to try and contest this, but they're not in position to be able to make it happen. And Roshan goes down. Everybody from 123 ends up backing out. They wanted to be able to jump on in there with the Earthshaker, but unfortunately no such luck, as Ideal take Roshan and put themselves in a decent position to come back in this game.
Oh god, Shackle does not land. Here is a little bit too far away. So now for Ideal, they're in a bit of a situation where they're not where they ideally would want to be. You're running a Huskar that typically wants to be in 123's faces, just jumping on heroes, finishing them down, being, you know, that all-ultimate raid boss that you sometimes see with Huskars, where he's almost impossible to kill. He's getting pretty close to that timing window where he's going to be that. But I think 123, they're almost geared to sort of fend off the Huskar. In the mid lane, they poor Toy. Oh god, and as well as Aiden. Well, that's 2 heroes gone. There was going to be a charge in by the Spirit Breaker, but realizing he made a mistake and now he's blocked off. Oh no, this is not where you want to be if you're a Spirit Breaker. Can they cancel the TP? They can. Tornado just to make sure. And that's why you lose your life. I think that's what he wanted for his name to be.
Absolutely. A little bit unfortunate. They do end up getting the Urn Charge there off, trying to keep him alive, but not going to be able to be the case, as he does end up falling, and Disruptor was the one that ended up getting that kill. Taking a look, that's going to be a 600 gold swing and 20-8. I mean, Ideal, they did have the Aegis still up if they wanted to be able to commit that one on in, but they've been doing a great job on the side of 123 of focusing every other hero, and Huskar hasn't really been that meat shield that you would expect out of an Aegis user, so kind of unfortunate there. Now, I will mention the Alacrity here. We talked about it in the draft, being able to, you know, bump on up the Gyrocopter. And while it can still do that, it's not as effective if you max on, as if you would max out Exort, because you still only get the 30 damage. You get the extra bonus attack speed, but that's not really necessarily what Gyrocopter wants. He wants to be able to just sort of hit out in huge salvos the big damage coming out from the flat cannon, which is why you end up sometimes seeing the MKB on him. So I do still like the fact that he's going to end up going for that build, and it's going to be great for it. But Alacrity not being as big of an impact, it's much more going to be around those tornado EMPs and being able to take away the mana from the side of Ideal.
So now it looks like we're going to have a small rotation here coming out from 3 heroes from Ideal. They want to try and look for another rotation, and unfortunately for them, no one's in the jungle. They just spot out the last hero to be there, and it was going to be our Gyrocopter. So he gets out safely. They will hang around for the most part, and they're going to get rid of this Sentry Ward here, but I'm pretty sure 123 may... Well, I'm not too sure if they're actually going to check to see if the Sentry Ward is still up there, more or less. Maybe thinking that it would have expired. But they're not moving down towards that bottom lane for now. It's just more or less 2 heroes up in the top for the Radiant squad and about 3 in the mid lane. Ideal could catch somebody off off guard in that bottom lane, but with these two already spotted, I think 123 gets the idea as to where they are.
Yeah, and that's going to mean that Yamate is just going to be more comfortable pushing on in here, taking on out this tower, and with Disruptor nearby, if they do end up committing one back to try and defend this tower, you can just glimpse them on back over there, and then you've got the capabilities of being able to split push a little bit more effectively. He's going to end up tossing out another Alacrity. Meanwhile, the whole rest of the side of Ideal do end up taking down the tier 2 tower, and looks like they're going to be thinking about pushing high ground here. It's worth noting the Aegis is still up, but not for an incredibly long period of time. We could end up seeing a bit of a problem here if they commit a little bit too heavily. There's going to be the Wind Ranger starting to deal a good amount of damage. We have the Invoker on back in the area. There's going to be the Rocket committed onto the Huskar, surged on up, glimpse on back. That's the kinetic field. Ends up catching him. He's in a little bit of a biz situation now. They toss out the EMP as well as the Tornado, jump forward. That's going to be the Aegis gone. And they also have the Static Storm on top of this Disruptor, or excuse me, the Darkseer. He wanted to jump back in for the Vacuum Wall. BKB is now popped for the Gyrocopter. He's still taking a lot of damage. Echo Slam onto everybody. What is in the middle of all of them just doling out that damage? Huskar goes down, as does the Spirit Breaker. Winter Wyvern soon to fall. Dragon Slave not going to connect that time, but they still bring on back the Wind Ranger. It looks like Aiden is going to go down if they're able to catch a glimpse of him. Do they have that vision? One more right click is going to be able to be there. I think that he dies to this. No, going to stay alive. Cold Embrace in the fountain. Oof.
Oh, so close. So close. I actually thought it was the glimpse animation, then I saw the Thunderstrike. If it was another point in, I think Aiden would have died.
Yeah. Very, very close. And it's 2,700 gold swing in the end, as well as about 4,000 experience. I mean, you say, all right, you missed the kill on the Winter Wyvern, but you killed off the whole rest of the team and only ended up losing the Invoker, who has a Midas at this point. He's super comfortable dying for that, and they don't end up doing any damage almost at all to the Tier 3 tower. They're super happy with that base defense, and the Aegis expended as well.
And I'm really surprised Ideal decided to go for such an aggressive push, because you know that even though there's an Aegis on your Huskar, it's still high ground. It's still an advantage to 123. They have the initiator's advantage because of that high ground. And even though your Huskar has Aegis and he's incredibly tanky, there's still Laguna Blade. There is still a lot of high ground damage coming through, and there's a load of catch potential from 123. And we saw just then that the Glimpse catching out the Huskar when he tried to retreat, keeping him blocked in, finishing him off, and Ideal, they were just stuck back here because they were afraid of getting Echo Slammed in this vicinity, and instead they got echoed down there. So this is not where you want to be if you're Ideal. They're still in a good position, but they're going to try something different. Not to 5-man push up high ground in a 5-man squad. Maybe trying to go for those small pickoffs, getting 1 to 2 heroes, and then just slowly chipping away at the tower. Because the tower push for Ideal isn't that strong if Toy's not there. Huskar is, let's be honest, he's crap at push.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a problem. And I mean, I guess it's such a difficult decision for them to make, because honestly, they don't scale well into the late game, so they need to make something happen, but they don't have the tools to be able to make it happen. And I think that they probably thought that this was going to be their best opportunity to really pressure them. Because as you get to the later stages, Gyrocopter is just going to become such a monster to deal with, and they've got the great abilities to be able to sort of defend him. I also want to mention in that last fight, I talked about it briefly as we were going through the cast, but laying down the Static Storm on top of the Darkseer to be able to cancel away the Vacuum Wall combination, which would have been followed up by the Winter's Curse, was such a clutch move, because that is going to be able to turn around the whole dynamic of that team fight, and him laying that out as a zoning ulti to really be able to, you know, make the Huskar caught out away from everybody else. He had no choice but to jump in and try and purge off all the abilities that were on top of him and do whatever he could for it, but just not enough there to be able to make it happen. And I think that Ideal were thinking, all right, this is our moment to really make something happen with this Aegis, and they just didn't end up executing as effectively as they wanted. Or maybe you could say that 123 ended up just doing a great job of executing.
Yeah, so props to 123, whereas for Ideal, they're going to still hang into the game. Now, this is good news for 123, right? Because they defended a very good high ground push coming out from 123. They lost almost nothing in the team fight. They're getting the time that they need for Gyrocopter as well as the Invoker to really secure their items. For 123, At what point would you see them trying to be the aggressors rather than continuously counterplaying Ideal? Would it be maybe 20 minutes from now when they've got a lot of their items? Is it after one item pickup?
Well, I think you have sort of, and this is something that people don't often talk about. You have two different things working in your favor here, or two different things that are competing in your favor. One is that I think they do kind of just want to some extent, get out of this game. Like, they feel like they're in a really commanding position, and they feel comfortable going forward. But there's also the fear that they're going to end up sort of giving away the lead. And this is something that you occasionally see in these games, is teams get antsy. The reality of the situation is they feel like they're so far ahead. Why don't you just end up leaving the game, they end up saying occasionally, and then you end up being in a position where you end up giving a lead away in a game that should have been won. But I don't honestly think that they're going to be in a position where they can comfortably push up into this lineup. At least until you end up getting, well, they're going to go for it now. I don't know if this is the complete and total proper move, as we ended up seeing Huskar jumping forward. They're going to be able to vacuum down on top of the Lina. There's going to be the Winter's Curse committed. Oh, not necessarily the best for this one. They're off left on the side. So much damage coming down on top of TNT. A double kill for what on that gyro, or excuse me, on the Earthshaker. They're going to be able to catch on out this Darkseer. Also, meanwhile, over to the other side, Invoker is just wrecking havoc on this Winter Wyvern. Do you end up seeing the Surge on up on top of this Darkseer? Do they have enough to be able to make this happen? Blink Dagger forward, a couple more right clicks, that's going to be enough to kill off this Winter Wyvern, I do believe. And now changing their sights, even going to be able to connect the net there. There's going to be the cold snap and no ability to get out of here. A full team wipe. Like, if the team fights go that badly for Ideal, then you're going to be comfortable going high ground now. They really should have found a better initiation than that.
It's just because of vision. There was no vision for Ideal. They tried to go in blind, and unfortunately for them, 1-2-3 was just completely on top of them. They get a Lina kill, which is, it's fancy getting the Lina kill with the Axe, but where's the rest of your team now? They're all in the fountain. We've got the Spirit Breaker trying to push out top lane. I think this game has turned into a disaster here for Ideal, where it looked like they were in a position to eventually take this game, and then all of a sudden, off the back of one bad fight, it's just slowly slipping from their grasps.
It's really too bad. I think that you're saying it exactly right, that there was the one bad team fight down there in the bot lane. If that didn't go, like, Ideal could have ended up winning that engagement. You have the Winter Wyvern ulti with the Darkseer, Vacuum Wall, you've got the ability to have Huskar just start going ham on everybody. They don't have the best defensive supports on Team 1-2-3, but they just, we're seeing 1-2-3 out-initiate them, play them consistently, and this is what these heroes allow you to do. Like, you consider Huskar as a hero compared to the Invoker. There's so many ways that you have to be able to outplay your opponent, and it doesn't mean that you're always going to be able to outplay your opponent, but you at least have the option to make that happen. Whereas with the Huskar, all you can do is just right-click fools, while occasionally, Argonaut toggling is great and all, but it's not too hard to learn to Argonaut toggle, if you're a pro player at least.
Okay, so now for the most part, we're going to see a Roshan attempt here only by the Huskar, as the rest of the team is sitting on high ground. 1-2-3 in the meantime, though, they want to contest this Rosh, and they really, really need to. They've got humongous amounts of AoE, but Ideal is thinking the same thing. Fish is going to be there, disjoints the team, but Echo Slam onto two heroes, and the combo is being thrown out by 1-2-3. It's just overpowering Ideals. They're slowly melting through all of these heroes. Huskar being the only true survivor, really, as the win range is completely out of it. Huskar gets a couple of nice kills. Armlet toggles, wants to turn onto Yamate. He blinks out. Two heroes are alive for each side, and can they get the kill onto this Earthshaker? So close, he doesn't TP out. That fight, what the hell happened? They
had the ability to control the Huskar, but then at the end they just lost all of their control. They blew it all in the early stages. We are going to have the Invoker in the middle of everybody. They actually don't have any dust or reveal for him. Do they have any bringing out on this courier right now? We don't have anything. And Invoker ends up stealing the Aegis. Yamate is going to go down. But pretty nice there. That's actually almost worth it. A really wonderful play there by the Huskar, though. Like, so this is what ends up happening. You don't have the damage to be able to burst them down. The last second, the Invoker did end up going for a Deafening Blast, which has a really long disarm on it because of all those points that he ends up having in Wex. So he's able to somewhat sort of deal with it, and then you end up getting into a position where he armlet toggles and not going to be able to kill him off. And that's essentially what it comes down to, is that, Huskar at low HP does a lot of damage.
Oh, obviously it does a lot of damage, as we just saw. So it's still a denied Aegis though for 123. They know that there's no Aegis for Huskar, so Ideal don't have the Aegis advantage. I think 123 are still happy in their position. There's no Aegis on the Huskar. There is no real advantage for Ideal aside from that major team fight. There is actually the new item on the Huskar though. On a scale of 1 to 10, how terrifying is this for 123? Is it going to be a big difference, or is it just more or less just a minor difference that could change the pace of the game?
I think with the Aghanim's up on Lina, as long as they team fight appropriately, that last engagement really didn't go well. For 123, obviously, because Huskar got an ultra kill, but the prioritization, they were fighting around the Roche pit, and I think that does sort of favor Ideal a little bit more effectively. If they're able to get the Laguna Blade onto the Huskar when he's low HP, or alternatively, if Invoker is able to start really dealing a lot of damage here with this MKB, that's really going to be the deciding factor. I think that as long as they're capable of focusing him effectively, locking him down, and making him the priority with both your damage as well as your lockdown, then you're going to be fine. That just isn't what we saw in the last fight.
It's not at all. So now Ideal, feeling a little bit more comfortable now, they're going to go for a smoke. And they need the initiation of their life. Or if they can actually catch the Earthshaker, I think this will be quite decent for them. So let's see if they can get the jump that they want. Toy, he's revealed himself, and Ideal, they're going to be revealed. They're going to go straight onto Toy. Seems Laguna Winter's Curse straight away onto the Gyrocopter. They want to get rid of him right off the bat. Gyro is dead. He has buyback. One hero is dead for Ideal. They might lose the Wind Ranger, though. It looks like they might. Oh, just a tiny sliver of HP. Invisibility Ring keeps him alive. And all of a sudden, the jump straight away onto the shackled Earthshaker. He dies as well. The heal coming up from the Wyvern, but going to be keeping the Wind Ranger alive. And Yamate being chased up by the Winter Wyvern, although TNT a little bit too far for that. So Ideal, they win another team fight, but this one was simply based on the fact that they got the initiation that they wanted.
It was the initiation that they wanted, and also Lina ended up blowing her Aghanim Scepter immediately on the Wind Ranger, who stayed alive throughout the whole engagement. I can't overemphasize how much they need the pure damage onto this hero, because if he's allowed to armlet toggle, if he's allowed to stay alive in these fights, maybe they didn't end up spotting him out in time, and she felt like she was just going to end up getting bursted regardless, and so wanted to throw her spells out. That's the only other thing that I can imagine, is that she just felt like there was going to be too much damage out too quickly and needed to get it out there on top of somebody. So kind of unfortunate, and another failed execution, I would say. That really is what that comes down to. Yamate here might be in a little bit of trouble, does end up turning around, Orchided down on top of the Spirit Breaker, and is just going to be able to walk away from this one. I believe he should be okay now. Does have another up in the Invoke, blink away, and yeah, he's out of here. Just going to Ghost Walk away, doing a little twirl as he moves out of there.
Too agile, it seems. So, for the most part, Ideal, they don't get the kill, and instead they're going to what seems to be continue on farming, whereas 123 content on their side of the map. We're 36 minutes into the game. Are we going to be seeing any huge game-changing items like Scythe of Ice coming up anytime soon? It doesn't seem like it yet, but I'm expecting at least a Scythe of Ice onto Yamate at some point, because he does good physical right-click himself, but I think I think 123 needs a little bit extra disable on top of the Earthshaker and the Lina, because there's so much going on the side of Ideal that 123 is sort of lacking the complete disable on some of these heroes.
Yeah, that's really one of the big problems. The other thing now also is that you're getting more and more of these defensive items on these other heroes. You've got currently on the, where is he at? The Solar Crest is on the Disruptor, so that's actually going to be relatively effective on this Huskar. He does have a BKB now, so kind of a little bit of a back and forth. Wind Ranger actually picks up a Daedalus. This is getting scarier right now. If you're Team 123, you've won a lot of team fights on the side of Ideal, and all of that gold is coming back their direction. 6,000 gold lead as well as 10,000 experience. I really did not expect them to be able to come back into this game, if I'm going to be completely honest about it, and they definitely can still win, but they've got to execute effectively. They need the heroes to hit their correct spells in the right order, and now also going to toss out the Tornado, backing on out of here. Huskar is a scary beast. There's no two ways about it. And now starting to get the armor also. The physical damage isn't going to be important. That Lina is the most important hero in this game. And honestly, I would love to see her pick on up a Blink Dagger, so that way she can just stay in the back, blink in, and Laguna Blade when the time is right.
Yeah, I would also like it if 123 maybe commits a little bit of extra farm into Lina, because this hero scales incredibly well with gold. So I think at some point they need to give her gold. I hope it's sooner rather than later because Invoker, he's got a Midas, he's still getting gold relatively well. Gyrocopter's farming incredibly fast anyway. So are they going to commit some more farm to Lina? He's still going to keep on farming, but I think this Lina needs quite a bit. And then once he's online, this Lina could be a really scary force to be reckoned with because this hero, built-in attack speed, built-in nukage, charge into the top lane onto Yamate, who's going to be a very, very sad Invoker shortly as nobody is here, and misses the combo completely, and all the heroes are just going to run on through. His Nether Strike committed onto Yamate, so anything to catch him? No, they're going to jump right onto Nobody, who should be an easy pick-off. No, he TP's in as the fissures there from the Earthshaker to keep his teammate alive. And Ideal, they didn't pop any major ultimates though. And Disruptor doesn't have the Static Storm for another 60 seconds. This could be a small window of opportunity if Ideal wants to pursue it, but that doesn't seem to be the case.
Yeah, they're going to leave him alone for now and wanting to take the next Roshan. It's worth noting again, if Ideal end up losing this game, they're going to be out of the tournament. Don't want to overcommit to anything, particularly since they've been able to fight their way back into this game. The other item, you know, I said that I really would like to see a Blink Dagger on the Lina. I almost would rather see a Shadow Blade now that I'm talking about it more and building that into a Silver Edge to be able to disable the Berserker's Blood coming out from Huskar. If you take that away, all of a sudden, it doesn't matter about your, you know, the pure damage that comes out from her. All you need to do is be able to get rid of that, and you can burst him down like any other hero. Obviously, he still is going to have a pretty significant amount of armor at this point, 27, considering he's picked on up the plate mail. But another smoke on in. Ideal would love to be able to make something happen out of this, but both teams grouped together right now. You know that if you run into one hero, you're going to be running into 5. Maybe they find the initiation that they want this time.
It depends if the Spirit Breaker comes in, and he's just picked up an item, it seems. I wasn't too sure what it was, but here he come, charging right on through to these heroes. Targets onto the Gyrocopter there. He's the one at the front. And this is the bait that 123 is hoping for. They want them to jump on the gyro. So here we go. Initiation B can be deployed, but a little bit too late as the Winter's Curse is there. Now the damage isn't going to be enough for Ideal. Darkseer actually goes straight down as it was focused down by 123. But here we go. Another hero goes down. It's going to be the Gyrocopter, the primary target. Yamate's going to have to try and get out of this as he's in a bit of a pickle as these heroes are going to start chasing them down quite quickly. And Lina gets out. Fissure's there to sort of keep them in place. No extra kills for Ideal. They lost 2. They gained 1 huge kill, though, which was the gyro, but I don't think it's enough for Ideal to really make anything happen out of this.
Yeah, well, Gyrocopter's dead for 60 seconds. He doesn't have buyback. I don't think they take any objectives or push high ground, but it might put them in a good position to be able to take Roshan. It's still a little ways away, though, and I think Gyrocopter will be back up by the time they're ready to take that one. If it would have been a little bit of a quicker Rosh timer, then you end up coming out ahead there and probably being able to pick that up. So Invoker is getting dangerously close to this point where he's going to be able to start tossing out those big, huge, God, why am I forgetting the name of it? What's the spell?
Nicole?
What's that?
Oh, Deafening Blast?
There we go. That's the one. It's been a long day. They are going to glimpse on back to Huskar. This could be their moment. There's also going to be able to have a Laguna Blade in a second or two on top of him. It does look like they're going to be able to take on out the Huskar. Huge kill. That is what they needed to have happen. 80 seconds without him. They catch on to the Spirit Breaker also. This why you lose. It's going to go down. Another kill. Double on the Lina, and a huge one at that. This might be the moment where they're going to be able to take Roshan. Huskar does not have buyback at this point. 68 gold away from finishing it off. He's not going to be able to be back up in time for Roshan. Although I don't know if they're going to know about it.
Well, that was so much cockiness from the Huskar. What was he hoping to oh god, I'm actually
accomplish? I have no idea.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Problem.
What was he hoping to accomplish being there by himself, just pushing out heroes from 123? Was he hoping to get solo kills for free? Because 123, they're showing a lot of respect to Ideal's draft. They know how strong the Huskar is. They bring everyone in, and the Huskar feeling overconfident and thinking that he could fall back just to a BKB to get out gets hugely punished. They're actually very lucky that 123 isn't able to accomplish much because of that kill. The Rosh is just going to come up now. It's about 19 seconds till Huskar comes back. Ideal can potentially contest this, but it depends if 123 spots the Rosh respawn, which is going to happen right now.
It's really frustrating. They leave right afterwards. I think that they would feel comfortable going for it now, but seeing as they're not going to be able to be there, they're going to be content for just taking the tier 2 tower and then having to back on up afterwards. Now, I want to say that if you take a look at terms of team net worth again, it's about a 10k lead. Items that are coming up, I believe that Lina here she does have a decent amount of gold after getting that kill on the Huskar, 3,000 or so, so she's debating what item she wants to go for. I still am sticking to my guns that I would love to be able to see her pick on up that Silver Edge. I don't know if that's what she's going to opt to do. It's also worth noting that with a couple of the Blink Daggers on these other heroes, all of a sudden Blink becomes that much more effective for your side. But hold on to that, because it does look like we're going to be seeing Ideal move on in here. They spot on out that Roshan gets taken down, but just at the very end as Gyrocopter picks up the Aegis. And this is not what they want to have happen. They're moving around the other side. They're actually going to be able to maybe separate and isolate one of these heroes. No glimpse is going to be coming, and they're just going to back on out.
So Aegis gets taken by 123. Huge asset for this Gyrocopter to have this Aegis. And there was no cheese, right? Yes, there is a cheese. Okay, I'm actually miscalculated how many roaches we had this game. I thought we only had 2. Well, that was a second. Anyways, cheese and Aegis on 123. The cheese on the Earthshaker is, I don't know if he's supposed to be just a placeholder to hold the cheese or what, but I don't think Earthshaker should be using the cheese. I'd prefer it if it was maybe on the Lina, who's more in these fights, or maybe even just having Yamate make space for it, although he's essentially full unless he wants to get rid of the Midas. He could potentially just swap the Midas out for the cheese. I would prefer Yamate to have this cheese right now.
We'll see. I mean, the other thing is that what they're going to be doing now is trying to slow siege with this Gyrocopter. They have the ability to throw Alacrity on him maxed on out at this point, which means that he's going to be dealing 90 damage on top of the damage that he's already dealing with the DD. So this is going to be right around 400 damage per pop with the flat cannon going out. And they're looking to see if they can pick somebody off here. It doesn't look like they're going to be able to find him, unfortunately. And I don't expect to see Ideal move on out any time. And probably what you're going to be seeing is just Gyrocopter standing up here on the high ground, starting to right-click down the tower, and then Earthshaker is going to go for the counter initiation and then drop the cheese on top of him. I'd expect that to be the play, and if that's the case, then I'm pretty okay with Earthshaker holding it, because he is going to need to be the one that sort of counter initiates. It's just going to come down to him having good micro and being able to react efficiently. So maybe if that's going to be what they try and do, it ends up working out. Time will tell. We actually have Invoker push on up towards this top lane. He doesn't realize that that's where everybody else is, and the rest of the side of Ideal actually isn't in a position to defend against this at all. If they end up going on up into high ground here, they could probably apply a good amount of pressure. Windranger is out as well, so if she tries to TP and Invoker sees it, he could potentially go for almost a one-hit kill. That's going to be the jump forward Sheepstick, as well as the Bowler comes forward, Deafening Blast, and that is going to be a kill on the Windranger. So a quick pick-off.
And Ideal, honestly, they would not be expecting an Invoker to get a solo kill on the Windranger. So for Ideal, they lose the Windranger, 70 seconds off the board. 123 gets a huge kill, but they're not taking anything as of yet with it. And it seems like now they realize that Windranger, huge asset. Maybe they can force a buyback out of this. If there's a buyback, does 123 still commit, or would they just back up and say, we're happy with the buyback on the Windranger?
I think that they would be comfortable pushing up here and at least testing the waters, seeing how it goes. They've got cheese, they've got Aegis, it's reclaimed in 2 minutes. They're going to start dealing damage to this tower. Just look at the amount that he's doing. It's almost as much as when the DD was up on him, and going to start to really burst this through. And Windranger does end up buying back. That's going to be the shackle there. Is going to be able to get committed. Force Staff still keeping him alive. They have the opportunity here for counter initiation if they want. Looking for their opportunity. Gyrocopter comes on back to life, pops the BKB. There's going to be the Winter's Curse still committed. Nice little initiation there. He's starting to take a lot of damage. Yamate in the background not able to focus on down the Winter Wyvern quickly enough because he does not have... Oh, there's the jump forward. They actually end up shackling up the Gyrocopter. He's going to go down. They're continuing to be able to burst on through this. We do end up seeing a triple kill, though, as Yamate has started to go ham. An ultra kill. He takes on down the Dark Seer as well. There's the jump forward. Wants to be able to take out this Windranger. He's going to get a rampage. This Invoker is off the chain right now, completely and totally ripping through the entire team. GG ends up getting called. Oh, goodness gracious, Yamate. My heart be still.
The Invoker plays. I told you this is a hero that I love seeing Yamate play. It's signature hero. I'm pretty sure the viewers enjoyed it as well. Ideal. I honestly thought we were going to be moving into a game 3. It looked like they had enough of an advantage to somehow take this game off of 1-2-3, but off the back of a couple of really good decisions, One, two, three, they overstepped the boundary that Ideal is thrown in front of them and said, we're going to be hitting you where it really hurts. And I think for Ideal, where do you think it went wrong? Was it after the Huskar got picked off? Was there a moment where it looked like they were behind? Or did you just think it was one, two, three sort of doing the right thing and just breaking through Ideal's draft?
There were a couple of moments. I think one, the Monkey King bar pickup was incredibly smart. You end up getting it, not an item that you end up picking up, as we saw there by the Corrupt Drop Bear stat, but it's great for the Wind Ranger. You saw him pick him off in the top lane there. Also, being able to simultaneously, like in that last team fight, the Echo Slam was not very great. The Winter Wyvern was able to isolate and kill off the Gyrocopter. They were able to focus him down, and throughout the whole course of the fight, you continued to see the Invoker just prioritize the correct targets. He went on to the Winter Wyvern, and then once the Winter Wyvern ended up glimmer caping herself up, he moved over to face the next target. I think he bursted on down the Spirit Breaker afterwards. The Winter Wyvern fell soon, and then the Huskar, and then he was just moving from person to person to person and constantly finding those moments. I think that he won them the game pretty much single-handedly in those last few minutes. The couple of team fights they ended up seeing, like Lena did burst the Huskar, but they just got the right items. That was to me the big thing, and they got enough gold to make it happen. The late Midas picking off or working out for him also. So all in all, just great series. It was really wonderful to see. In terms of this, were you expecting this outcome out of 1, 2, 3 being able to be the ones that come out on top? Uh-oh, I think we ended up disconnecting from Skype. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen, as we end up losing that one off. So that's going to do it. Thankfully, the game ended up going off there because Skype ended up crashing. Thank you guys very much for watching. At Lyrical Dota, at Danny Lee Casts, at Corrupt Drop Bear on the stats. It was an absolute pleasure casting for you all. Follow us on Twitter if you liked what you heard. We're going to be around again, I believe, tomorrow, same time, 1700 SGT is going to be when the first series pops off. I'll be showing you the brackets